So what actually is happening in Bangladesh? Who are the players behind it?
Actually, this is a pot which was boiling for a while now. It's something which has not just happened overnight. So what Modi ji gave was a very measured statement. At the same time, it sent a very firm message that the entire country is with the Bangladeshi Hindus.
A lot of factors, including economic turmoil and general discontent. So all of this played a role, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and some of it was genuine because the economy was in pain. Others were, Philip was given by some external force.
That Bangladesh is better in terms of happiness index compared to India and all. So does this actually show that there's something very problematic about this happiness index kind of a thing going on? Or?
Just not happiness index. See, briefly their per capita income actually was better than us.
Okay.
That was what was exploited by people like Rahul Gandhi or KCR. Tirupur could have absorbed the whole of demand from Bangladesh. But consciously we allowed Bangladesh to grow so that the infiltration will again exfiltrate.
Okay.
A lot of people have gone back.
It's a strategic decision.
It was a strategic decision. Sheikh Hasina herself said it is US, and then they wanted St. Martin Island.
Correct.
And since she refused, they toppled her. That's her claim. So you see, her reaction was something which is a big trigger for China.
Right.
So China wanted an alternative. So they were seriously eyeing for this. India Out campaign again was definitely run by China.
Prime Minister Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel laureate, he's pro-American. So wouldn't that actually strengthen the theory that the Americans are behind this?
Absolutely right. So the people who claim that America has done that, this is one strong argument they give.
Namaskaram and Vanakkam to NHX. A lot has been going on around India's neighborhood. We've seen Sheikh Hasina sent away from her country, Bangladesh, and a new person placed over there, Muhammad Yunus. We've seen a lot of hue and cry about what's going on over there regarding the minorities, especially the Hindus over there. We even had the Prime Minister Modi ji today from the ramparts of the Red Fort. He's actually said 140 crore Indians are concerned about the safety of Hindus. So what actually is happening in Bangladesh? Who are the players behind it? To discuss about this, we have with us today Shri Giridhar Mamidi ji. Namaste ji.
Namaste Aditya ji, namaste.
Namaste. So you've been going to a lot of programs, you've been talking about Bangladesh, a lot has been going on over there. And especially today's, the PM, many people have been saying the PM hasn't been speaking much about what's happening in Bangladesh. But what do you think about it? Do you think the PM has spoken something enough about it?
I think it has been a very matured, measured response from our leaders, be it our Foreign Minister Jaishankar ji or Pradhan Mantri Modi ji. Because this is not a time for jingoism. If you do something in an emotive way, there are going to be repercussions.
Correct.
Number one, the Hindus in Bangladesh are going to take a lot more than what they've already taken.
Correct.
They're going to face a lot more problems. Second, the government which is in place now or the one which is likely to come is likely to turn antagonistic to us.
Right.
What happens if they're going to ask for an extradition of Sheikh Hasina?
Correct.
Then we're going to have other problems, other complications.
Diplomatic issues. Yeah.
Correct. So it's probably, we do a quiet diplomacy. We send our message across through the back channels, through backdoor or whatever it is. But when you are giving a public statement, be measured. So what Modi ji gave was a very measured statement. At the same time, it sent a very firm message that the entire country is with the Bangladeshi Hindus. So he sent a message. Privately, what they would have spoken is completely different.
Right. So in your view, like what has happened in Bangladesh, they say that it all sparked with a students' protest against a quota-based bill. So do you feel that eventually turned into something huge, or do you feel some players actually played with the genuine emotions of people?
Actually, this is a pot which was boiling for a while now. It's something which has not just happened overnight, right? So let's say even before the elections, their elections were there early part of this year, maybe around in Jan or something like that.
Right.
Before that, there were actually a couple of movements that happened. One was India Out campaign.
Similar to Maldives.
Absolutely right. It was a carbon copy of Maldives, right?
Right.
Indian goods were banned. Indian businesses were highlighted, targeted, and things. Of course, no attacks happened, but there was a huge movement of India Out.
Right.
Like you see, when there is a clash between Palestinians and Israelis, You see, even in our towns, in Hyderabad, for instance, you see poster of Jewish products to be banned. They put up. Very similarly, a lot of Indian products were put up and said, don't use these. Right? That campaign happened. Obviously, it was where the motivation came or funding came from China. The second one was there was a textile agitation. The textile industry is going through a lot of pain. The biggest problem with Bangladesh is when this Chinese Wuhan coronavirus hit all of us, when it hit them, everybody is sitting home, nobody needed clothes, they don't need to buy anything.
Correct.
So the orders were all cancelled or there were no fresh orders. And you can't retain the employees and then keep paying salaries where you don't have any business.
Right.
So lakhs of them lost their jobs.
So you're saying there's a lot of factors, including economic turmoil and general discontent. So all of this played a role, is what you're saying?
Yeah, some of it was genuine because the economy was in pain. Others were, the fillip was given by some external forces.
So generally, is genuine pain sufficient to actually topple a government, or do you feel it does need some external pressure as well, support?
Obviously, external force is needed. Otherwise, internal pressures, governments can always deal with them. They can find solutions and they can find some answers to it. Yes, Bangladesh was going through a lot of pain. So they went to IMF, got some bailout from them. And even we started funding them to a certain extent. China had given them lots of loans. So it was like it would take some time before they could breathe. Because their businesses were hit. Probably they would have taken a few more months before they got their orders back. But then, all movements are the same way. There would be an internal, real, genuine concern. There will be some pain. And that would be exploited by the forces that be to bring about a regime change. You see what happened in Ukraine, for instance. There was a Maidan revolution there in 2014, where the elected government was changed. Victoria Nuland was deeply involved in that. And then elected government changed. What happened in Bangladesh is the same thing. Sheikh Hasina has just now won the election.
Right.
Yet you're thrown her out.
Right.
And you're saying, she's a dictator or whatever it is. So the point is, most of the regime changes that have happened in the recent past, at least those orchestrated by US, are all democracies.
I mean, so just as a side note, but they keep saying that Bangladesh is better in terms of happiness index compared to India and all. So does this actually show that there's something very problematic about this happiness index kind of a thing going on? Or?
Just not happiness index. See, briefly their per capita income actually was better than us.
Okay.
That was what was exploited by people like Rahul Gandhi or KCR. Right? They kept on saying, Bangladesh is progressing better than India. But the problem is the bubble busted, it busted in no time. The point was their entire business was dependent on one industry, which was a textile industry.
Right.
And that textile industry also was at the cost of us. Your Tirupur industries were badly hit.
Correct.
So it hardly, for us, we let them flourish. If that was not the case, your Tirupur could have absorbed the whole of demand from Bangladesh.
Correct.
But consciously we allowed Bangladesh to grow so that the infiltration will again exfiltrate.
Okay.
A lot of people have gone back actually.
It's a strategic decision.
It was a strategic decision.
Okay.
Because there is opportunity there. So there is no opportunity in West Bengal. Why should they stay here? What for?
Correct.
So they went back to Bangladesh. Quite a lot of people actually went back to Bangladesh. Okay. That was a conscious decision. But then, as I said, once the pain point happened, then all hell broke loose. But we were warning the government that this is going to happen. You need to do something else. Okay. But the last trigger after the Supreme Court judgment was when the external players stepped in.
Right.
Till that time, the genuine grievances of the students was one. Again, there is a very peculiar demography in Bangladesh. 70% of Bangladesh is educated, literate,
right,
which is high, and that too massive number of them are graduates or postgraduates. Whereas the requirement for their economy was only low-skilled people, which is like your textile industry, people who could sew or do cutting, whatever. It was low-skilled requirement for largest industry in the country, but their education output was very high.
Right.
So there was a mismatch in the way these people are getting jobs.
But when external forces get in, So who do you think are the major players who must have entered, and why would they do that in the first place?
So again, there are multiple arguments. For instance, Sheikh Hasina herself said it is US, and then they wanted St. Martin Island.
Correct.
And since she refused, they toppled her. That's her claim. We need to give it a very serious thought. Of course, the White House and State Department in US have completely rejected it. They said we are not involved.
No, but then they've again said we support what's happening. We support the protest movements.
Yeah,
So-
okay, see, again, they want their influence to continue.
Okay.
So whichever government comes, suppose they say it's a loss of democracy, you know, if they say some statement like that, probably the government that comes in is not going to be favorable to them.
Right.
So they are
Playing
just-
safe.
Yeah, they're just betting their chances on that. So they're playing safe, right? So anyway, point is they have very strong reason to do what they did, if at all they did.
If US did it.
If US did. Now the point is, again we need to talk a little bit of China and then let's go to US. China has a significant problem in its geography. It is first blocked by a first chain of islands, which is your Japan, your Taiwan, your Philippines, Korea. You know, all these people are going to stop them from going into the warm waters. And even if they cross this first chain, second chain again is in literally in US hands. Be it Guam, be it Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea,
Midway Islands, all of that.
yeah, all this, Marshall Islands, and you have Vanuatu, we have so many of them. All of them are again in the Western influence. Solomon Islands, of course, China has now taken over, but rest of it is in their hands. They're desperate to have access to warm waters. That is how the CPEC concept came by, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And so Gwadar port was the starting point for them, where the Karakoram end in Gilgit-Baltistan was to connect them to Kashgar and Xinjiang. That was the idea. So that they have access to the warm waters of Arabian Sea. Now what has happened is, completely this entire CPEC project is completely gone haywire.
Okay, and why would that happen?
First, of course, Baluchi resistance is very strong there.
Correct.
Dr. Mehran Baluch, she brought in lakhs of Baluchis onto the street in Gwadar and started protesting, and the government is just clueless how to stop it.
Okay.
They are bursting tires on the buses which are bringing in these people in Mushtang and Quetta and many other places. They're somehow desperately trying to stop it, and it's become an international news, and there's egg on the face of the Pakistani authorities. So China is desperate to have some access beyond the port there. Okay. Beyond the port and beyond their colony, they have no access. They can't get into the CPEC at all. The highways are all completely taken over by the Baluchis. Now, assuming there is a army escort from Pakistan, even if they are going to go, again there is another stumbling block in Gilgit-Baltistan.
Right.
Gilgit-Baltistan High Court passed a judgment where they said the federal government, which is government sitting in Islamabad, has no right to impose taxes on trade that happens through their end. That is because officially Gilgit-Baltistan is not a province of Pakistan, which their attorney general admitted in the court. So the High Court in Gilgit-Baltistan said you can't collect taxes. So since the central government was collecting taxes, the traders in Gilgit-Baltistan have laid a siege to this particular exit route and they have blocked it. So for China this is dead, literally dead. So they can't go beyond Gwadar port, they can't access Kashgar. So what do? They need a second access to the warm waters.
Right.
Nothing better than Bangladesh for them. And Sheikh Hasina was in Beijing just a few days before she was dethroned, and she was badly insulted and sent back.
They say she came one day before the meeting ended, she came back.
Absolutely. She came back one day before. She was not treated properly. Xi Jinping gave her something like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Just 15-minute audience, and then you add up the translation time, so it went on to 30 minutes. Otherwise, hardly 15 minutes they spoke, and she was literally shown the door. So as soon as she came back, she announced that the Teesta project, the Teesta river related whatever projects were there, she is giving to India. And there is a Mongla port which the Chinese were bidding. She announced that it is going to be given to India. So you see, her reaction was something which is a big trigger for China.
Right.
So China wanted an alternative. So they were seriously eyeing for this. India Out campaign again was definitely done by China. America knew this. Now let's look at American angle to this.
Right.
The US did not want China to have an access to warm water.
Correct.
So what they did is, if Bangladesh falls into the Chinese hands, they get the access.
Correct.
Because from Chittagong, they can use the track towards Myanmar. And Myanmar, China is playing both sides. They are funding the Arakan army and also they are funding the junta. So between them, they can manage them, and so they can have an access to Chengdu. Chengdu is mainland China, unlike Tibet or Xinjiang. It's a huge, they have to cross the Taklamakan and Gobi Desert. It's a huge distance for them to travel, even if they come from CPEC.
Right.
Whereas Bangladesh is much affordable for them. So they were desperate to have access to Bangla ports and Myanmar ports. So Myanmar awarded one port to China, and the next port next to it, Sitwe port, they awarded to Bharat.
Okay.
So China was eyeing Bangladesh big time. So the people who say that China had done this coup, they put this argument that since CPEC has flopped, they are now looking at the warm waters of Bay of Bengal. So they have ensured a regime change in Bangladesh.
But they say that the current Prime Minister, Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel laureate, he's pro-American. So wouldn't that actually strengthen the theory that the Americans are behind this?
Absolutely right. So the people who claim that America has done that, this is one strong argument they give. But Muhammad Yunus was not in picture when this coup happened. He was just an afterthought. So coup happened. Then they needed to install somebody, and the students suggested Muhammad Yunus. And so he came by, right? The point is, who did the coup first in the first place? That's where we have a question mark.
Right.
Assuming US has done that, right? And somehow they influenced the students to get Muhammad Yunus on board. The argument from the Chinese side is that if they put a Chinese stooge there, the game is out.
Correct.
So they want to put a puppet like Muhammad Yunus, who's 83, 84 year old, and he can't really do much. But the backroom operations would be done by the army, and the army chief seems to have been sold out to China.
Right.
So there would be a front end Muhammad Yunus, so-called pro-West, but the actual decision making is somewhere else. So this is what people who say that China has done that, they claim it. As I said, there are strong arguments on both sides.
Right.
But we got to wait and see how this government is going to react. If St. Martin Islands, now it is very difficult for them to give because it's become a public issue. But maybe they will give something else to US interests. Maybe they would have access to some of their ports, maybe access to their airfields. We don't know.
Right. So
What kind of access the new Bangladeshi government is going to give to US, we don't know.
Right.
Similarly, assuming that the new government takes away a couple of projects from us and then gives it to China, we know where the money has come from.
Okay.
So let's watch for a while how this government is going to act. Based on that, we can finally decide whether it was China or whether it was US.
Right.
But in both the cases, the actual work was done by ISI.
Okay.
It was ISI who used Jamaat and BNP and their own assets here to do the final push. The last attack which happened on Sheikh Hasina's house, where the army gave up and all that, whatever happened in the last 2 days, those were completely done by ISI. The problem is, who funded ISI? ISI has no stay. Whoever pays the money, they'll work for them.
Correct.
It's a rentier army.
Highest bidder. Gets
Highest
it.
bidder. So that is what we'll get to know in the days to come.
So as a final question over here, so now considering India's position, let's say one China is behind it or US is behind it or either way neither of them are behind it, just spontaneously happened with ISI support. How are these three different cases going to impact India's own relation and their own security in the neighborhood?
So for starters, our interests were collateral. It is not something targeted against us,
Right.
or against our interest.
Right.
But whoever is behind this, right, be it China, be it ISI, be it USA, we will suffer. We don't have an alternative. We have almost 4,000 kilometers of borders with Bangladesh. You're going to have next exodus of people coming in. Already there are lots of videos which are viral now in TikTok and other platforms, where Bangladesh could easily walk into our territory without any difficulty. There are
unopposed.
there are water holes and all below.
It's a porous border completely.
Correct, porous border. They could easily walk in.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a second round of influx coming into this country, and BSF has significantly failed in stopping them for decades now. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. So probably you're going to have a lot of more illegal guys coming in.
I mean, you're saying it's not just about Hindu refugees. You're saying even
Correct.
Muslims, other communities can also
Correct,
just
they're going to come because
do
the
India's-
industry is down now, their economy is down now.
So they
Obviously,
need a livelihood.
yeah, there's a livelihood issue and lot many other issues.
Demographic changes,
Demographic
deliberate
changes.
demography.
And local politicians could encourage them to come here.
Okay.
So all these issues are there. Hemanta Biswa Sharma already gave a warning that most part of Assam, 40% is now Muslims, and there is an existential threat for them. So these things are going to happen. Second, what is going to happen is Pakistan is going to use this as an opportunity to push in its quote-unquote assets into our country and keep them as sleeper cells for action at a later date. So they would just come as economic refugees.
Right.
So you won't, you
can't differentiate.
Difficult for you to filter them out.
Yeah.
So that is a second threat that we have. Third, we have always been focused on two and a half front: China, Pakistan, and your internal enemy. Now you got to look for a third front. We don't know how Bangladesh is going to behave. What's going to happen? Earlier, we did have some clashes with Bangladesh Rangers and our BSF. We had firing in a couple of occasions earlier. So we don't know because they are deeply entrenched in smuggling. The Bangladesh side army, armed forces are deeply involved in the smuggling. Especially cows and cattle are smuggled big time into Bangladesh. And stones are smuggled. There are lots of smuggling which happens across the border.
But do you think the general sentiment in Bangladesh currently is pro-India, or do you think there is some kind of resentment against India as well?
Currently, it is largely anti-Bharat, anti-India, for the simple reason that Sheikh Hasina is here. As long as she is here, they think that she is our stooge, and so we were the ones who did whatever wrong happened in their country.
But there were a lot of people who voted for her, right? So they will certainly have some soft corner.
Yeah, see, it takes hardly any time to flip, because Khalida Zia won few elections before.
Correct.
Every 5 years it was flipping between these two.
Correct.
So it doesn't mean that her voters are fixed and permanent.
Correct.
They voted for Khalida also,
Like any other nation.
like any other nation. This can keep shifting, right?
Right.
So the point is now she has her period is over now. She's been for such a long time. There is some degree of stagnation, and probably there is some degree of complacence, and last but not the least, a sense of authoritarianism, or let's say entitlement, right? So all these things have come in.
Right.
Any government which lasts, any rule which lasts for such a long time is bound to face all these things.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what has happened in our case. Though she is credited to have turned the tide in the favor of development in Bangladesh, unfortunately she had to face this.
Correct.
Tomorrow, this government, whichever is going to come in here, they're going to face the biggest task is to sustain their economy. Their economy is going to take a massive hit. Because once these disturbances are there,
Confidence is shattered.
yeah, nobody is going to go and give
Invest
business
and-
to them.
Correct.
Right? To restore that is going to be a massive challenge for this government. And if that fails, God forbid, you can't underestimate what's the bottom of the pit.
Right.
It can spiral out into a lot of stuff, and you would see lot much of religious extremism coming in. Lot of the typical thing that happens is
The
looting.
Pakistan syndrome kind of a thing.
Pakistan syndrome kind of thing can come by here. So that is a third front you got to face.
Correct.
So it's not 2.5 front now, it's 3.5 front war
Right.
now.
Right.
So probably I don't know how many fronts we're going to face. Myanmar is another front which is staring in your face.
Correct.
Already people are infiltrating into Mizoram, in Manipur, in Nagaland.
Nepal is claiming parts of India as well.
Nepal, K.P. Sharma Oli has claimed Kalapani, Limpioduran,
Pitola
Lipulek.
side and all, yeah.
Yeah, Om Parvat. I had the good fortune of visiting it a few months back.
Great.
So all those areas they are claiming it
Great.
with push from China.
Yeah.
And they've even put that in the 10 rupee note, latest 10 rupee note which has come, they're claiming that and they're putting it.
Correct.
So anyway, they can't do anything about it, it's too much, but then this will continue for a while.
Right.
I'm saying we're going to face multiple fronts. China is going to surround you to do a lot of stuff, to try and control you, contain you. Even US loves it,
Yeah.
right? So both their interests converge somewhere. But some analysts are saying both of them combinedly they did whatever they did in Bangladesh. I don't agree with that. Because whoever has done it, it is an automatic loss to the other.
Correct.
If China has done it, it's a big loss to US.
Right.
If US has done it, China has lost one more access to the warm waters. So they have not combined, but both have very similar interests.
Right. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ji, for your valuable insights. So you heard today's discussion. So what do you think about this? Please comment below. Namaste and Jai Hind.